one of your books is the work itself, and you go through the journeys of some of your work experiences, and I find that you seem to get a sense of joy out of work. We talk about it at Truist in terms of our purpose, in that our purpose drives us, gives us that sense of direction and energy. And in every chapter of your life, you seem to have found purpose and joy in terms of what you're doing. I love one of the quotes that you have in one of your books from Martin Luther King, where you say, "Everybody can be great because everybody can serve." Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. And and it's something that I realize that we have this common understanding and this framework around what we mean by greatness. And sometimes greatness means that you are the best at this, or you've made the most money at that, or you have risen the fastest in this, or you were the first to accomplish this. But it's a very, in many ways, it's a myopic understanding of what being great actually means. That this idea and this definition of greatness is not simply about, were you able to score the most points? Were you able to, survive the longest, or whatever the case is? But the definition of greatness actually is, what kind of lasting impact can you or will you make on the world long after you are gone? And when we think about it from that definition, and we broaden out the definition of what greatness actually is, you realize that we all, as Dr. King says, we all can be great because we all can serve. We all can find that thing that makes our heart beat a little bit faster and attack it and go after it and know that that thing is your specific thing, but it's something that you have a unique opportunity to make an impact on. And I think about it, where even what I want to describe within the work was my own journey and my own professional journey, where, I realized that, I was in places and spaces oftentimes that I was trying to keep up with people because this is what other people were telling me was the right thing for me to do, right? Oh, you should do this because this is a really good thing for you to do. You should do that because it's a really good thing for you to do. All those things, and people will always give you counsel and advice that's coming from a place of love, but it's coming from their perspective, right? I can give somebody advice till I'm blue in the face, but they have to understand that the advice that I'm given is coming from my perspective. And they should take it and internalize it, but then still make a decision based on what's going to be best for them. And I started realizing that when people actually are considered great at what they do, there's actually only one thing that they all have oftentimes in common. It's not where they're from. It's not their background. It's not where they went to school. It's the fact that they are absolutely obsessive and passionate on what they do. I've never met anyone who's great, truly great at what they do. And I ask them, so do you love what you do? And they're like, it's okay. Right? I've never met that person. Everyone who I've ever met who's really great at what they do, and I ask them, do you enjoy what you do? It's like immediate. It's like, absolutely. I love what I do. I wake up in the morning thinking about it. I go to bed at night thinking about it. I spend my whole day processing it. I'm great because I love what I do.
Yeah, that's great. And one thing that I have found that helps people, it helped me, is to just kind of go back and reflect on your childhood, because oftentimes what happens in our childhood, some bad thing that happened or some great thing that happened, but something that made a real imprint in your life, sometimes that leads you to your why. I was talking to one of our teammates at Truist, and he talked about how when he was a small child, his house burned, and he and his single mom were homeless. And a lady came by and offered to let them stay in a house that she had that was available until they could get back on their feet. And so now, guess what? He's a mortgage lender for us. And he enjoys helping people get into the houses because it fulfills him. It's his why because of what he went through as a child. So I think in addition to what you said, it's also helpful to think back about, what happened when we were young.
When you think about what a home is, it's that place of safety, it's a place of security, it's where your children grow. It's where your relationships happen. It's where so much of your life centers and focuses.
I'm Brent Miller, and I'm a Truist teammate.
Out of all the things that I do, I never dreamed in my wildest dreams I would work for a bank. Back when I was 5, our home caught fire and burnt to the ground. At that point, we became homeless. It was pretty traumatic to see your home burn down, lose everything. We ended up just outside of Tulsa, and we were at a laundromat, and I get a little emotional, sorry. But we were at a laundromat, and the lady saw the plight that my family was in, and she approached my mother and said, "I want to help." So she had taken us to her recently deceased mother's home and said, "Your family will live here until you get on your feet." And having lost a home and then being given that gracious gift of a home to stay in really impacted me as a young man. When you see people give so much of themselves freely, it really, like I said, set a really deep impact in my heart. And I've always felt that from that I needed to give back. When I graduated high school, I joined the United States Army. And I went and became a firefighter and an EMT. I'm an ordained minister.
Truist's purpose is to inspire and build better lives and community. Truist is just one more way that I get the privilege of helping people.
Working for a company that allows me to live out my desires to help people, how cool is that? So that people get that dream.
When I think about home ownership, I think about what that means to a family. And when I think about what I do at Truist, it's about helping preserve that gift of home ownership.
I wanted to ask you about one thing I was intrigued. You wrote in one of your books about a heartbreaking quote from David Graeber, an anthropologist and activist, and he said that huge numbers of people spend their working lives performing tasks that secretly they don't believe that they mean very much, that it doesn't make any difference, and that's kind of morally and spiritually damaging. And I've seen that in my life and in other people's life. So, can you give people advice about how they can find purpose and value in their work? Because I know you have, and I have found that capitalism really works. You can work and you can, accumulate wealth, but you can do it in a way that makes the world better. But a lot of people don't have that, do they?
That's right. No, and it's a heartbreaking thought, right? The idea of every day existing within a space that you, in the back of your mind, or in some cases in the front of your mind, secretly believe should not even exist, right? I mean, that the weight of that is just crushing. And it's one of the reasons when I thought about it, where it was like, it's a difference between an occupation and your work. And those two things can be different things. Part of our job and part of our goal, and the thing that gives us, like you and I, the thing that where we find a measure of peace in the fact that you can have a blending and a merging of your occupation and your work. Where occupation is, who's helping to pay your salary, who's helping to give you your job to do. But your work is something different. Your work is the thing that actually makes sure that you are fulfilling a fundamental need that the world has, and that you can uniquely fill it. And so making sure that you can find a way for your job and for your work, or your occupation and your work, to be able to merge and meld, is a really, really powerful and triumphant phenomenon that I think for a lot of people, for far too many people, they never actually are able to get there. And I think about it where I was talking with a mentor of mine when I was actually getting ready to, when I was leaving the White House as a White House fellow, and I was getting ready to, go do another job. And he said to me, he's like, and I told him what I was going to do. He said, "Why are you doing that?" Because he knew where my heart was, and he knew this is very different than what I was going to do there. And I told him, I was like, "Well, I think it's important that I'm helping to take care of my family, and I think smart people work there." And he said, "Listen, I will never criticize you for something that you do, particularly for something that you do that isn't with the need to support your family." But he said, "But the only thing I'm telling you is this: the day you feel like you can leave, leave. Because every day you spend doing something that you are not passionate about, you will become extraordinarily ordinary." And that was indicting. This idea of becoming or being extraordinarily ordinary. The idea of not living up to a promise. The idea of taking all the investments that people made in you for all those years and not doing anything with it. That's an indicting feeling. And so I feel like part of this journey and part of this idea of coming up with that blend of your job and your work, it really means honoring that spirit that's giving you the counsel and the advice, but then sometimes we just don't pay attention to. That's the smartest and the best way that we can honor the way that people have poured into us all these years, is by being able to pay homage and be able to support the type of things that then your spirit turns around and tells you what's important.
Wow, that is really, really powerful. I think about that a lot, and I say oftentimes, Wes, to our teammates or potential teammates at Truist, that the magic in life happens when your personal why aligns, not totally, but substantially, with what you do for work. Because when that happens, you don't work anymore. You get to get up in the morning and get excited about going to join a group of people that you enjoy being around, doing something that you're personally really passionate and believe in, that's going to make the world better, or whatever purpose you have. When you can do that, you just transcended working. You just moved to a much higher level of life.
Yes, that's exactly right. And you've given yourself the space and the opportunity for that everything in every way and space and place that you maneuver in, you know that you are on the path. That it doesn't feel like a deviation. It doesn't feel like a lie. It doesn't feel like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. You've now given yourself room to breathe. And there's just no greater feeling than that.